This is Political Arena on S24 Television. I am your host, Abubakar Traki. Nigeria's Minister of Defense, Christopher Musa, recently said the country will deploy artificial intelligence and modern technology to tackle insurgency and insecurity, while many people believe technology can help security agencies track criminals and improve intelligence gathering across the country, while others argue that insecurity in Nigeria also need a better governance, community support, stronger intelligence sharing, and economic opportunities for young people. In this interview, I am joined by my senior colleague, Mr. John Costa, to help us understand if AI alone is enough to defeat insurgency in Nigeria alone. Mr. John, welcome to Political Arena on S24 Television.
Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure speaking to you once more.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Recently, we have seen the Minister of Defense made it clear to Nigerians that they are going to deploy artificial intelligence in the fight against insecurity in Nigeria. As someone that have the security expert and knowledge, do you think that AI alone can help in fight against insecurity in Nigeria and across the globe?
I think it's a welcome development, but at the same time, artificial intelligence alone cannot solve that problem. Like any kind of introduction to new technology, whether it's a new firearm or a new piece of equipment or a new unit of soldiers, it's part of the whole. And I think it's a welcome development that Nigeria is looking to use artificial intelligence and additional things like drones to be able to help with the security situation. But at the same time, I think it's about making sure they're deployed in the right way and that the personnel that you operate in those things are trained in the right way as well.
Okay, so what other advantage do you think using artificial intelligence has in the fight against insecurity?
Well, I think if you look globally at how AI is used, I think the Ukraine-Russia war at the moment is the sort of the key indicator when it comes to AI. It's the ability to get it to do some of the heavy lifting of the task. So if you've got a personnel shortage, you're able to use AI to give you a sort of an exponential advantage. It has the advantage of being able to monitor larger areas maybe when it comes to surveillance. So for example, if you're using surveillance drones, obviously AI is able to complete multiple tasks in addition to your human operatives. That might mean that you're able to target more efficiently, make sure you're doing the sort of intelligence that separates someone who's a herdsman from someone who's a potential terrorist. So I think it's an exciting development because what it does is it allows you to dominate those ungoverned spaces that dominate really Nigeria's borders. 1,000 miles of border that you don't have a wall, you don't have a fence. It's almost impossible to have. So therefore, you have to use technology, and I think something like drones and AI will definitely help the Nigerian security forces to be able to achieve its task.
In one of your trips, you recently went to Katsina, and you went to places like Basari. In your own opinion, what role do you think communities can play in the fight against insecurity, especially in those affected areas?
Well, again, with all of these situations is when someone comes up with a wonderful solution to a modern conflict, they very rarely study history. And if you're a student of history and possibly geography as well, what you start to realise is you go back and you find similar examples about how communities have or haven't been included in sort of the mechanics of a defence structure. And I think when we went to Katsina, obviously we got to meet some of the members of the Community Watch Corps. We saw them in operation, got to talk to them and interview them. And I think talking to the state governor as well, it became very clear that he realised that they were making no progress. So schemes around paying bandits to lay down their arms and reintegrate, creating the Community Watch Corps, employing local people, because they're the ones with knowledge. You imagine being a Nigerian soldier coming from the southeast or the southwest, maybe you know a little bit about the north that you've grown up hearing, but suddenly you're on territory that's not of any recognition to you, whereas someone who's employed in a local militia knows where the tracks are, knows the way through the forest, knows where people might be hiding. So there's the safety of the operatives involved. If you know where the way is that I'm going to ambush you, the chances are that we won't ambush each other. Whereas if you're a soldier, then you have no idea. So we're saving lives by using local people, but also they tend to know what the local solutions are. You know, what people are driven to join the bandits or become criminals. And of course, in many cases, and the state governor admitted this himself, that, you know, some families, you know, family members are those same criminals and bandits as well. So you've got a very complex situation that cannot be dealt with technology or military forces alone.
Okay, from your UK experience, do you think what model should Nigerians at least learn from UK in order to deal with the issue of insecurity, especially in the northern Nigeria?
Again, I'd be very cautious about saying to anybody that we should learn or adopt any models that anybody else has got. I think it's more about looking at that particular situation and understanding why it's different. Okay, why it's different. So if you were to look at, you know, IPOP, you know, sort of a continuation of that Biafran War, secessionist movement, that's kind of an ideology really that wants to unite or separate as a nation. Well, you might be able to learn from our troubles in Northern Ireland in the United Kingdom. There's probably a direct link there you could do, but that's very different from the army in the northeast fighting Boko Haram, where, you know, there's probably more to be learnt from maybe Iraq or Afghanistan. But again, lessons learned through history, you suddenly realise that, you know, in the 50s and the 60s, you know, the British in Malaya, for example, tried a scheme where villagers were put together in compounds, they raised a local militia, and that left the ungoverned spaces for the British forces to take on the communist insurgents. That model was much more effective at dealing with it, and when the Americans went into Vietnam, we offered that service to them, you know, training them how to do it, and they said no. And of course, we now have that famous flying in helicopters and flying out again and not dominating any ground at all. So I think that would be my, you know, thing that I would talk to any sort of senior military commander here is go back and find some lessons in history that you can at least use as your base model in order to be able to go forward. Because a one-gloved fist military army approach, you know, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if you've got four separate, you know, you've got herdsmen, you've got people down here, banditry, you might have kidnapping, you might have ideological insurgency here, you might have secessionists here. You just can't send a soldier to do that job because you are putting him in a situation to fail, and that's very unfair on him, I think, or her. Yeah.
Mr. John, before we call it a day, patriotism is very, very important. What are your calls to Nigerians in order to be patriotic and ensure that this country continues to live in peace?
That's an interesting question, because we were here in November and we were at the NICTA conference, the technology conference, and I think it was a day or so after President Trump from America had threatened to attack Nigeria, and someone stood up on the floor and they were talking about technology and does anybody have any ideas, and this chap was talking about, you know, Nigerians need to do this, Nigerians to do this, and the MC said, "Can I just stop you, my brother?" He said, "You know, we're all Nigerians, we should be proud of being Nigerians." And it made me really think that rather than just football, it took Nigeria to be threatened as a country, for Nigerians to forget all of their differences and divisions and all the things that play out in politics and religion and come together and dominate. And I think in an interview that I did this morning with someone as well, we was talking about, do you think that your average Nigerian on the street understands what in all of these different types of insecurities in the country, and, you know, do they see it as a profession that should be respected? So I think it's a societal issue that cannot be solved by AI or a general or a soldier or a weapon on its own. It's maybe some bigger debates, which is, you know, at the end of the day, conflict creates cash, and it can create cash for both sides, and so therefore there has to be a willingness to get peace, because in peace no one's buying guns, bombs and drones. So.
Okay, before I say goodbye to you, tell me one thing you love about Nigeria, one thing in a nutshell.
In all of my visits to Nigeria, I find everybody is incredibly welcoming and very warm and very friendly. I've never had any issues since I've been here. And I think that there's a genuine innovation and exciting approach to life that I come across, particularly with young people that I meet when I'm here, that these young people have, with support from the older generation the ability to come up with all the solutions that Nigeria needs to its challenges. So.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. And that is all what we have on Political Arena here on S24 Television.